Alright guys, like the title of this video indicated, we're going to be doing a partial rebuild on this 4L80E transmission attached to this diesel Suburban. Just going to start with draining the fluid out. Got a replacement pan bolt here. So let me get that going first and I'll explain a little bit more about what's going on. Alright, so basically with those codes that this truck is getting, we're going to have to replace the throttle body. And I normally would do this if I was going to rebuild the whole transmission. I did that several years ago on one of my other trucks. And I don't really want to get involved with that on this one. So I need just to get it back where I can get it running. And right now I can't get it running. It won't shift out of, going more than 35, 40 miles an hour because of this problem. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to rebuild everything that I can get at, excuse me, from the bottom of the truck. Primarily to replace the throttle body, but we'll also replace out some of the springs and some of the other parts to here. I'll take you through them one at a time as we go in here. So, but anyway, we're going to start with draining the pan contents, and then we're going to remove the pan. So I'm going to let this go for a while. We'll pause, we'll come back, we'll drop the pan, and then we'll keep going on from there. All right, guys, have this finishing up draining. I'm going to go ahead and put the drain plug back in so that I can pull the pan. So, by the way, this was a 15 millimeter ACDelco replacement plug I had put on here a while back. You know, that original one from the factory with kind of like a Torx head. Never does last very long. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the pan bolts out, and I'm going to do that with a 10 millimeter. And just to save some time, I'm going to use an electric ratchet on that. I'm going to move this drain pan a little bit out of the way here. Just going to go down here. Break the torque initially, and then get the switch on here. Now, I'm not actually going to pull the corner ones out. I'm going to leave the four corners in. I'm going to pull all the other ones out, though. Just so they don't end up dropping into the drain pan. I'm going to move this guy a little bit out of the way so I don't have to fish him out of there. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing all the way around. Just going to go to and break the torque. Pull it out. And then on the corner one, same deal, but I'm not going to pull it out. I'm about halfway in. So I'm going to continue doing that all the way around. I'm going to pause the video and we'll come back right before we drop the pan. At this point, I've just got, like I said, I kept the 4 bolts in the corners, which is what's holding it up. I've got 4 in the back here. I tend to leave these ones on these outer edges. Now, what I saved one to show you, these bolts that sit by the transmission, the rear mount here, they can be kind of hard to get out, and you have difficulty getting, let me show you here. You have difficulty getting a socket in here because of this rubber mount piece. So what I usually do is I get it out as far as I can to loosen it, and then I'll get under here and push this up, and then I'll just get in here with 2 fingers and unscrew it by hand. It's really the only way to get these ones in the back out. There's 17 of these bolts that you should have. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish this off. So I'm going to take these guys on the front out. I'm going to take this corner here off. And then I'm going to take the opposing corner over here off. Okay, at this point we've got only 2 bolts holding it. I'm going to get all these bolts out of my way here. Set them aside. And I've got this kind of leftover Thanksgiving pan from the wife here. I've kind of cannibalized. I've done this before in some other kinds of scenarios where I'm using transmission fluid drains. So I like to take something like that, sit it over the top here. You don't have a lot of room under here, but it's at least a little bit better on making the mess. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pan out of the way, and I'm going to use this to try and catch most of what's going to start dripping off here. Won't be able to get it all, but it'll make it a little bit easier. All right, so now I'm going to push up again. I'm going to take the bolt I've got here in the lower left corner, left facing towards me, not from the perspective of the driver. And then I'm going to take the very last bolt up here off. For stretch. All right, at this point, you've got no bolts holding it. Take the pan. The pan's still going to have quite a bit of fluid in it. So you don't want to take a bath in it. You want to be real careful. So I'm going to drop it just enough to clear this heat shield that's in front of me. Right? And then you're going to work it off. And then you're going to work it past. Now what's going to end up, it's going to get hitting on the exhaust pipe and this rear cross member in the case of this Suburban that the skid plate's attached to. Depending on whether you got a pickup, you might have a little bit of a different arrangement down here. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to push it up towards the exhaust pipe so I can lower it in the back. And what I'm trying to do is kind of just tip it a little bit. You can see it's going to start tipping some of this fluid out. That's all I really want to do right now. Get some of this out of here and reduce some of the weight so it's a little bit easier for me to maneuver it. So give me a moment here. I'm not going to try to do the whole thing, but get a little paper towel here ready. Same kind of deal, right? You just kind of dump it out. Whole objective here is to try and avoid the mess. I'm working inside the garage today because it's raining outside, so definitely don't want to make as much of a mess. I'm not going to be able to get it all out. Kind of lift it up now at this point. I'm going to try to get the pan to clear this rear cross member. And I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm just continuing to dump it in. Just a little bit more. And I'm going to lift it back up, and I'm going to take the pan and just kind of sit it over here to the side. Because what I really want to do is I want to get this guy in position to catch the drips coming off the transmission itself. A few little drips down here. All right, so basically we're at the disassembly phase now. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to let this guy drip for a while, and then we're going to come back in here and we're going to remove the filter, and we're going to remove the bolts that are holding these clips that are securing our wiring harness out of the way so that we can disconnect the wiring harness and set it aside. We're going to remove the clip that retains this oil feed pipe, and we're going to pull it out. And then we're going to start removing the bolts that hold the throttle body into position, as well as the ones that hold the pressure switch over here. First thing we're going to pull off is the pressure switch. So I'm going to pause the video here, let this drip for maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. We'll come back and we'll continue picking it up. All right, we've let this guy drain, so let's go ahead and proceed with the disassembly. I'm going to take the filter off. Just going to wiggle it loose here from the bushing. And it's going to probably have some fluid in it that didn't drip out, so we're going to empty that out first. And what I've got is I don't know if you can see under here, I've got the drain pan from the transmission. Excuse me, I've got the drain pan I'm using to catch all this fluid sitting right in front of the drain pan, the oil pan itself from the transmission. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take parts like this after I shake a lot of this out, and I'm just going to set them over in the original transmission pan right over here, for example. Okay. And as I go, if I get little drips and stuff, I'm going to clean it up. All right, so now we're going to start disassembling. So first, two bolts I'm going to take off in here. Clips that hold this harness on first. take these off, there's probably going to be some loss of fluid. I'm going to go ahead and put these in the pan as well. Over here. The clips themselves will stay on the harness, at least on the wire loom of the harness. Won't be able to catch it all. We'll catch enough of it. Okay, another one for the pan. Okay, now this guy's connected to the A and B servos over here. He's connected to the pressure switch here. He's connected to a couple other guys. I don't remember their name off the top of my head right now. And we're going to need to disconnect these two, this one and this one and this one, to get the harness out of the way. I'm going to try to shake some of this fluid off here. So I'm going to drip. Come over here and see if I can get the B solenoid guy off, the A solenoid guy off. Almost. He's just being a little stubborn. Might have to get a little screwdriver on him. All right. I'm gonna just come back to that in a moment. You guys don't need to see me struggling to get that off here. I'm gonna go ahead and keep going with these other throttle body bolts. These guys are all the same. I'm going to leave the corners in very similar to what we did with the pan. Okay, so you guys get the deal here, right? So I'm just going to continue going around, removing these bolts. I'm going to leave the corners here, leave a corner there, and a corner there in. But I'm going to take everything else out. And we'll get a little screwdriver so I can get the rest of this plug off here, and get these two connections off here. And we'll just keep going around. Now these are all 10mm bolts, by the way. So we'll reduce all. We'll remove all the ones that aren't on the corner edges, and then we'll loosen the 4 on the corner edges and come back. Okay, so the trick to getting this guy out back here, so you can see the first solenoid here, the A, is just one of these little ski clips. But this guy here, I couldn't see it until I got underneath, has 2. So you're going to undo both sides with the screwdriver. It's very similar to the guy up here. Now this particular sensor here is just a single clip in the back, so we're just going to raise it up with the screwdriver. And then this guy's just going to pop right off, so it's just this little clip right here. And this guy is like the one on the front. It's both sides, and then it'll come off. All right, so we're going to sit this guy here. Now I don't want to get any dirt on this guy, so I got a little bag here, a little plastic bag, Ziploc bag, whatever. We're going to try to keep him in so that he does not hit the ground. And then I want to get this pressure sensor plug off. In this case, it's got a couple of clips on either side that you squeeze. It comes off. Okay, so cannot get it off any further until I can get this crossover pipe off. So what I'm going to do now is, so I've got my corner here, 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 and here. I'm going to take these 2 out that are holding this shift gear position detent piece of metal lever. loosened them already. This guy's under some tension, that's why you see him kind of flexing. And then we got the last one here. Again, I'm going to drop both of these into the pan. We'll clean all this stuff up later. Okay. Now I loosened it. There's a bolt here holding a clip that retains this crossover pipe. So, and the pipe itself should just wiggle free like that. Put that in the pan. Okay, and then we're going to have to switch to an 8mm, I think. Let me see. Yeah, an 8mm, get this pressure switch off. Just going to loosen them for a second first. A little bit of fluid's going to come out of here, no doubt. And some of these other ones that I was taking out off video, particularly these ones in the middle, when you take them off, there's going to be a lot of fluid that comes out. So just have whatever you're doing to catch all that in position. Since these are a different size bolt, I'm just going to put them in a little separate little Ziploc bag I brought for myself. I'm just going to take these guys off by hand as I go because I've already loosened them up with the electric ratchet. And hopefully that will give it time to drip out along the way. But we are nearly ready to drop the throttle body. One other bolt here in the front that was obscured by that coil crossover pipe, this guy here, and then this guy here that we'll take out right after we finish this switch. There we go, there's some more fluid coming out there. Let that run for a minute. Switch back to our 10mm. And we'll get these two guys here. All right, there we go. A little bit of extra fluid coming out, so we'll just position it to catch in our pan as well as our actual catch pan. We have both of them going now. Ahead and remove this last bolt holding on our pressure switch, and I'm going to remove our pressure switch while all this is dripping out here. Little bag here. All right, to get the pressure switch off, you just kind of give it a twist, and it'll let itself go. Okay, some of this runoff off. Take this bag and put it in the drain pan as well. And then we've got this bolt here. We will remove by hand. And this guy in the front. this point, our throttle body is only being held on by those 4 that we didn't fully remove. Okay, so again, I'm going to let it drip for a little bit just to reduce some of the mess, and as soon as it quits dripping, we will go ahead and pull the throttle body. Let's come back in a minute. So let's get this going here. So I'm going to go push this catch pan and the little kind of oven pan I was using to catch things. I'm going to slide a new one into position, mostly because I just want to get it more room to work here so I can drop the throttle body. I've taken the cables, as you can see, and I've taken that bag and I've just rubber banded it aside so that I can make sure that none of this gets into the dirt or anything. I'm just going to kind of pull it out of the way for a minute, because one of the things I did notice that we left up here was the actual pan gasket. It's kind of stuck up here. Yours might not have done this. They usually stick to the pan. I didn't even notice this until the last break there. So these gaskets are reusable, so as long as we don't damage it, we can keep it. Okay, get this guy out of here. Set him over on the pan where he should have been all along. I'm going to take our wiring harness, kind of tuck it up under here, stick it up out of the way, keep it in the bag so it doesn't touch anything, get any dirt on it. Don't want to get any dirt at all on this. Okay, so very similar to the pan now. This guy's just held in by the screws that are here. I'm going to go ahead and take this guy out, so that'll leave just one in the back. And I'm going to go ahead and take the opposing corner off over here. Now, the one difficult part of this whole thing, and doing it upside down like this, because normally you'd have this transmission out and on a stand flipped over, is there are some little balls, some check balls that are going to go on this valve body on the other side. And probably when we drop it down, they're going to go everywhere. There should be 8 of them, although there's a couple of variants of this that might have 9. But just telling you right now, when you drop this, to be watchful for that. So I'm going to do some last bit of positioning here. The plan is just to kind of drop this thing right into this pan I got below me. I got everything disconnected now. All right. I'm going to take this screw off. And then it's only held by this guy up here now. And I'm just going to let this guy fall down. Now there's also a spring-loaded guy that's going to come out with it. Let's get it into position here and I'll show you. This guy here. So be watchful. Whoops, be watchful for him falling off as well, being upside down. We're going to replace all this anyway. Okay, so looks like I'll pull this out where you can see it. You can see those little balls I was talking about. Looks like they all kind of stayed on the gasket, which is a good thing. I'm just going to clean up some of this spillover. At this point, we're almost done with what I had planned to do here. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this reverse servo cover here. I'm going to change out the spring while I'm in here. I'll replace this guy, and I think that's about it. I'm going to put some new check balls on it. I have a ACDelco rebuilt throttle body. I'll show you all these part numbers in a minute. I'm just taking a look here. You know, things don't look too bad. I think probably that throttle body and with some sticking solenoids were causing those codes, like that P1870, for example. All right, so let me pause the video so I can pull this stuff out from underneath the truck, show you what it looks like, and also show you some of the new parts. So this is, I've just gotten out from under the truck. I've pulled this pan out. This is exactly what you saw me drop down. And so here we have our complete throttle body assembly and throttle valve assembly, and then we have the gasket sitting on top of it here, and then these are those check balls I was talking about. So there are 8 of them, and we got lucky. They're all exactly where they should be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then here's the first to second servo piston that normally sits right here, and that guy came out of his passage as well. So let me show you some of what we're going to be doing to rebuild this. So I've got a new pressure switch here, which is a part number, GM part number 242-22077. So when we put this back, since we got all this taken apart, we're going to go ahead and put a new pressure switch on. I've got a part 242-23081, and this is a rebuild kit. This is basically going to replace our first to second servo here. So we're going to have to assemble this. There's a clip in here, the piston and the shaft, and this clip holds it down, and there's a seal that goes around the outer edge. Kind of see the old seal here. So I'm going to toss this and completely rebuild this. This is a revised design, so we're picking up the latest design here for the 4L80E. I've got a new gasket. So this is this black gasket you see on top of the valve body, and this is a 242-04253. Right, so this is a whole new gasket that sits on top here. Now, I was going to try and reuse it, but I noticed that it had a chip out of it, so I'm going to go ahead and replace the pan gasket. So this is an 867-7743. It's a new pan gasket. Here's our filter. We're going to replace the filter. It's a 242-10956 GM. And this guy's out of the way here. Also got a new gasket for the reverse band servo that I'm not removed yet, but I'll show you. I'll take that off before we stop filming. 867-5728, just a new gasket for that guy because we're going to change out the spring that's in there. And here's a part number for that spring. 865-5843. We're going to change that out too. I haven't shown that yet. We'll do that in just a minute. And just fold on the second here, and then I've got this big box, part number 192-07801, and what this is a rebuilt valve body. Let's get this guy out of here. So what you end up with here is, so basically set these guys side by side for a minute. This is this entire assembly here, plus that gasket I showed you, and plus those check balls. Let me show you those guys. So those check balls are part number 104918. This particular package has 5. I've got 2 packages, so that I'll have enough to replace all 8. And yes, you should replace these balls. They wear over time, and the orifice is the steel plate. I don't know if you guys can see because the truck's pretty big, blocking things. But the plate can get worn as well. I'll take all this out of the plastic and we'll look at it again as well. And that's what we're going to do. So this is like a partial rebuild. I've got some other parts here after I get underneath that I'll see if I can get access to from below the vehicle with the transmission on the vehicle. And if I can, I'll show you how to replace those. But this is the main thing, and replacing this guy is what's going to get rid of those codes. What happens is these solenoids here, typically, for that P1870 code, these guys either get debris in them and they start binding, or they wear and then they don't start doing their job as efficiently, and that's one thing that can lead to the kind of codes that we're seeing. So just changing the valve body out, I know a couple of times I might have misspoken, said throttle body. This is a valve body for the transmission. That usually will be enough to cure the codes that we're seeing here. But we'll try to see whatever we can get because it's going to be a while before I rebuild this whole transmission. All right, so I'm going to kind of put this stuff aside. And by the way, you usually get a core credit on something like this. You can ship the old one back. So depending on where you got it, I usually buy my parts at Rock Auto. So Rock Auto does sell genuine GM parts, and I highly recommend it because it's way cheaper than going to the General Motors dealer. Anything that comes under ACDelco brand is usually available from them. So we're going to pause this, and we're going to go back underneath, and we'll continue disassembling the last of the few pieces, and then we'll start reassembling. Let's go ahead and resume the disassembly. Remember, we left this reverse servo thing off here. Do it next. Speak the torque. This is another one that's probably got some accumulated fluid that's going to come out, so be ready. It's also got a different kind of bolt, so I'm going to keep track of them. It's a 10 millimeter head, but it's a different length and a different thread. just not to drop them in to the oil pan here and have to fish them out. That guy I'm going to leave partway on because he's going to be my emergency one in case I drop him. Here. There he goes. All right, I'll finish this off by hand. Got this bolt on this side. This one that I left partway on. Collecting a handful of dripping old fluid right now. Okay, get all the bolts off. Now we're going to drop this guy down. I'm just going to dump the fluid that's in here. That was a gasket that you heard fall out there. Just going to reach over and put this guy in the pan. Everything else. Okay, and then this piece comes out. Same thing, it's going to be full of fluid. Going to hold on to this spring while I pour that out. Okay. All right, and we're going to put this guy in the pan. These are things that we're going to either clean up or replace parts. Like that spring I showed you earlier is definitely a piece of that we're going to replace. I'm going to take a look and see what other parts I have that I can use to replace or rebuild that item. Now there's probably most one other thing here. Just taking a look here real quick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a clean paper towel and I'm going to dab up some of this fluid that's sitting here so I can get underneath here and take a look. So I'm going to pause for a second, clean that up, and we'll come back. All right, now that we got this reverse unit out, we're going to get a couple other things out, and then we'll be ready to start reassembly. I'm going to get a little Ziploc bag here. What I'm after is this torque converter clutch solenoid filter that's here. And we're just going to pop this guy out, catch him in the bag. I'm just going to use a little tool here. It's actually a tool that's used to remove a chip from a dip socket, but I think it'll work good for this too. Just want to get something that you can get on the back of this guy and push him down. Oh, there he goes. And of course he missed the bag. Clean him up extra good this time. All right, got that guy out. The next guy we're after is this pressure valve. This is the last thing we're going to try and remove. To get this guy out, I'm going to use a screwdriver to push up against it. Take just some light in here and get me some light too. Basically, I have this guy push up against it while I try to take the snap ring out. It's under some pressure, not a lot of pressure, but it's enough that we want to try and hold it back a little bit when we do this. All right, so let me first see if I can get in here and grab this snap ring. There's the first guy, there's the second guy. Oops, almost had him. Okay, first pin. Second pin. Keeps slipping out on me. I have to change my pin sizes here. Let me try this again. Give myself a little bit more light. Just not cooperating. Trying to get this snap ring moved over a little bit. Might make it a little easier for me. Obviously I cannot see all the shadows. What's going on? Moved it a little bit. This turned out to be probably the hardest thing that's happened so far in this little job. At least now I can see it. Alright, now I've got that snap ring. Add that snap ring. Sorry about this, guys. Shouldn't be this much trouble to get this guy out. Worry for how much trouble it's going to be to get him back in. Alright, got part of him out. There we go. Alright. Sorry about that. Alright, so now I'm going to get this guy to come out here. Alright, it's loosed. Alright, so get my little bag. Snap ring in it. And this guy's going to drip a little bit, so make sure you have some rags ready. Actually going to drip a lot. Alright, we got the spring. Valve. There's still one shaft piece that we're missing that we need to get out. So let's drip for just a little bit. Let's see if I can go get the last piece of it with my finger. I'm feeling in there. Not wanting to come loose. Alright, I'll show you guys what's going on. Right, there's a shaft piece right up in that barrel there. It's the last thing we need to get off, and then we are done with this half rebuild disassembly. It's this piece that goes up into the pump. Front fluid pump. I can feel him trying to come down. He's catching on something. If I can't get him out, I might just leave him up there because the main thing we wanted to replace is the spring. Just wanted to kind of get him out and inspect him, see if he was okay. Something here. My screwdriver. Nope, it's just not letting go. Just was about to call it, and I felt him loosen up and fall out. All right, there he is. There's our valve itself. All right, so at this point, we are all done disassembling this guy. Sorry it took so long to get that snap ring off. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go over and start disassembling the sub pieces, like this reverse area, this reverse piece, this first to second gear position piece, and reassemble it with all new seals and parts, and then we'll put new spring pieces for this pressure valve, and we'll take our rebuilt valve body and get our gasket and balls in place, and then we'll start to reassemble everything. So we'll come back after that. All right, let's start getting this stuff ready to put back together. So I'm going to open up our rebuilt valve body, ACDelco. Lay him out here next to the old one. I can already see something I don't like. I'll show you guys in just a minute. What I see has happened is there's a couple of spots of corrosion. I don't know how long this guy was sitting, but that is the first thing we're going to have to take care of. I kind of saw that through the bag, but I wasn't sure until I got it out. So it's probably okay, but it bothers me enough that I am going to try just to touch up 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots. Just going to take some kind of painter's tape. Won't stick a lot. And I'm going to block off the passages that are adjacent to what I'm going to be working on with this. I'm just going to take some emery cloth and kind of file that down. Looks like I'm going to have to ditch the glove to get the tape off. There we go. Alright, so just going to tape this guy off like that. Tape him off like that. Take him off like that. All I'm doing this for is, since I'm going to be abrasing this, I do not want to have anything get into one of these orifices. That would be disastrous. Probably more so than just leaving this. I don't know. We'll just we'll go this route because I really don't think there should be any corrosion on something like this, and this probably was just sitting in the warehouse for a while and got like this. So unfortunately we have a little bit of extra prep to do that we shouldn't have to do paying for a brand new component. Alright, so particularly after this little hole here. Alright, so that one's ready to do. This guy is next. A little bit over here. Make sure this is all down nice and tight. Go ahead and get this middle one here. You see there's actually some type of anti-corrosion coating on this steel. Just a shitty job, Delco. Shitty job. You open the American plant and close the Mexican one, you'll be better off. Alright. Got the one up here that I want to knock out as well. The only reason I'm doing this, I'm just worried that, this kind of stuff could start bubbling up if you leave it go and don't try to do anything to treat it. And then at the end of the day, what you'll have is cross-passage leaks anyway as the corrosion lifts up and breaks the gasket seal. So, trying to avoid that, get the full life out of this repair that I'm hoping for. Okay. Last one is this guy over here. It's really hard because he's right next to an opening, but I'm just going to take some emery cloth. Start with this one because it's really not that bad. Yeah, it's just very minor cosmetic surface corrosion. Comes right off. Fortunately, not the end of the world here. This should be enough to avoid it being any kind of an issue. So sorry about that, guys, but you never know. Sometimes you see this kind of stuff. I sometimes, before I bought this part, when I was looking for the best price on a genuine GM rebuilt, I did see a couple of surplus of these that were from the U.S. military that were held off for Humvees, which would have these 4L80Es too. And I can only imagine the degree of corrosion that they probably had if something like this from Rock Auto was like this. Alright, just about done here. So I'm going to pause this, finish getting this surface corrosion emery down, and then we'll pick it up. Got this done. I'm just using another piece of tape to pick up any little small fragments that might have escaped our little restoration project here. Pull this guy off. Next thing I'm going to do here is get ready to put the gasket in place. Good measure. I'm going to take another round of tape here. Just make sure anywhere that we go near an orifice, we make doubly sure that we're okay. Alright. Now I'm going to take a clean paper towel, shop towel. And all I'm doing here is what should have happened when this was rebuilt, is taking this anti-corrosion compound that is already on this steel plate and making sure that it gets spread around to these areas that obviously did not get treated. It did not get treated properly anyway. And that should help with this problem going forward. Okay, and then just to make sure we don't have any fibers. Now we're ready to get going. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our gasket. This would be our 242-04253 gasket. And we are going to position this guy on top of the valve body. So be careful with these, you don't want to get any bends in them at all. This. And what I'm going to do here to give him a hand is you're going to need to have some of this handy for a number of the steps here. I'm going to be using some Transgel Red. This is actually what the factory assembly manual and the factory repair manual, service manual, whatever you want to refer to it as, would have called for. It's a good kind of adhesive as well as a lubricant. Is I'm going to take a little bit of this, I'm going to pick a couple of places here to put just a thin amount of this. I'm just going to use this just to tack this gasket in place. That's the only reason I'm doing this. Might even just spread some of this on some of our corrosion areas. How about that? Two birds with one stone. Okay. Take this guy and get him into position. See if we can get him to stay where we need him to be. I need to put a little bit more on there. He still wants to move. Line these guys up by eye. And then what I'll do is I'll put some bolts in here to hold it in position until we get ready to assemble it. Alright, that is probably as close as I'm going to get this. run the actual bolts through. Okay. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put these new check balls in. So just open a package up with these balls, dump them into the trans gel here, the first 5, and I'm just going to match up the position we see on the old one. All right, so we got a guy back here. Don't want to get too much of this stuff on here. Guy right here. Back. Guy on the far side over here. Just don't want these guys to move or walk around. The idea is that this type of assembly lubricant will break down in the transmission fluid anyway. All right, now we got to open another package of the balls. There's 5 in a pack. We're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, 8. Just happened to catch myself there and notice that. All right, so 1, 2, 3. 2 extras. And then after this, we're going to start moving on to the first to second servo. All right. That should keep these guys all where we want them. Okay, so next guy would be this one, right? So this is the guy that normally sits right here, and there's a spring and an assembly. It consists of a shaft, a retaining pin, a piston, and a piston seal. And I showed you guys earlier on. Find where I did with it. There it is. There's a rebuild kit for this, and it's a GM 242-23081. So that's the next guy we're going to put together. Okay, so we've got a spring, we've got a seal. This looks like some type of little anti-corrosion thing that we've got in there. We've got a piston, we've got a shaft, and we've got retaining clip. Right, so I'm just going to take a look and see. Yep, this is the outside. I'm going to take the shaft, would go like this, and then the retaining pin would go here. I'm going to take some of our trans gel lube, put it on here. I'm going to take this pin, get him into position, and I'm going to get a pair of pliers. Hopefully these guys will be big enough. Might not be, might have to get something else. Larger pair of pliers to get this on. Let me see if I got some laying by next to me here I can use. Might not. Alright, I'm going to have to get a different pair of pliers to squeeze that on. I'll do that in a minute. I'll take the trans gel here. I'm just going to lubricate this seal. It goes around this piston. This guy into position first. Alright guys, sorry about that. The phone ran out of space, so I had to copy the videos I had, and we're going to pick this back up. Alright, so we had just finished up getting this servo piston seal on, and we just need to finish this assembly with getting this little C-clip retainer into position. Hopefully one of these other larger pliers I brought over here will do the job. Push this guy in. Not sure why it's under so much pressure. Almost, maybe. Let's see what our old one looks like. So it sits, yeah, I guess that's it. It's in position. See if it goes down anymore, because it just doesn't look like it's exactly there, because I thought it didn't look exactly right. Alright, so now we got this in place. We got a spring, and we got this guy. I'm going to put him in a Ziploc bag, all ready to install. And the other things I had worked on off camera previously, I had taken all of our mounting bolts, cleaned them off, and got them ready to use. I had taken the pawl that sits over and holds the gear position. I got that cleaned off and ready to use. I had taken and cleaned off our oil feed pipe bracket and mounting bolt, and I had taken some compressed air and blew through here, so I got that guy all ready to reinstall. I've got our bolts, the 8mm bolts that hold the pressure switch, all cleaned up and ready to install. And then these would be the short stubby 10mm bolts that would hold the reverse servo. So let's start working on that guy next. So I cleaned him up, as you can see, and we're going to redo some parts on this guy as well. So we're going to discard the old spring, and we're going to go with a new spring. Again, part number wise, this is 8655843. Now I'm going to change out some other parts on this as well. So keep my new spring aside here for a moment. So what I really want to do is I want to get this spring out of here as well, and I'm going to replace that with an 862-3666 replacement spring for this guy. And I'm going to go ahead and replace this whole assembly, this whole piston assembly, with new seals, which will be a part 242 Charlie 5250. I'm also going to put a new seal on the outside. Find that would be here. That's a part 862-3430, our outer seal. And I got a new gasket for this guy, which is 867-5728. So I'm going to go ahead and set the gasket right over here. And I think that is the extent of the pieces for this. So let's go ahead and go in on that. So I'm going to open up this guy. This is going to be a replacement for this. Assembly glue in position here. And I'm going to start with, I'm going to put some trans gel on this outer seal just to make it easier to get in position. This guy's going to go right around the outside of this. Make sure it doesn't get kinked. It's kind of like a sideways slit for this stuff. There he goes. Alright, he's in position the way he's supposed to be. Do the same thing on this smaller seal. Position him up at the top. probably reasonably sure there's probably some kind of special tool that the dealer uses for this stuff, but I don't feel you need any of that kind of money wasted on tools you only use one time. Alright, so at this point this assembly is done, and we'll put our old one in the discard pan. The next thing we're going to need to do in order to change this spring out is we're going to have to take this retaining clip out. But before I do that, I think I'm going to try and pull this seal and change him. So let me do that. Or let me not, because I do not see my flathead screwdriver to get that out. So I'm going to have to pause for a second. Forgot one of my tools. All set. I'm going to use this small flathead screwdriver to get this old seal out. At least that's what I'm hoping to do. There we go. It's been in there for 20 years, so he's just not wanting to come out. I have to get a different tool for that. Let me go ahead and get this C-clip off. Now, this guy's under a lot of spring tension, and my luck, the little guy will shoot off somewhere, so I'll kind of do something like this, where I put this bag over it. And just punch a hole in the bag, and get the clip off that way. And I can control the spring tension on the other side just by having it against the floor. Almost. Alright, there we go. So, take this whole thing off as a unit. Our little C-clip in there. Alright, so we got a spring and retainer, and then we got a shaft and a retainer, and then we got this spring. This is what I wanted to replace. Set the old one aside. Got the new one. I don't know if I showed the part number or not, but that's 8623666. This bag opened. This guy on here. This guy on here. Now we need to get that seal off. Try one more time with the screwdriver, but I probably need to use a special kind of picking tool because I don't want to damage the aluminum housing while doing this. Yeah, no, I'm going to go get a pick type tool. Alright, let's try this again. Hopefully this kind of pick tool tear this seal off, and we'll just peel it off from the. There we go. I like to use something like this to just kind of dig into the rubber of the seal without touching the aluminum until I can get it. Well, I had it. Would have been all done if I hadn't slipped with that just then. Alright, let's try not to slip with it this time. There we go. Got this seal off. I'm going to open up this new bag of seals. I think I showed the number before, 8623430. One of these out. And we'll put some trans gel on this. Lubricate it up. Then we will reinstall it. Just make sure you use your thumb to kind of keep it from working its way out on the other side. reassemble this unit with our new spring. Put our C-clamp back on. Now that spring is, the new spring is obviously going to be under even more tension than the old spring. So just be cognizant of that. Here. And naturally I didn't have the pliers ready. Reach over here with my left hand. This guy going again. I'm going to line him up. And by the way, I didn't point it out maybe, but I'm pushing against cardboard down here. You definitely don't want to push against concrete or anything that might damage the shaft. You know, no nicks or bends or anything like that. Alright, let's try this again. C-clamp into position. Alright, well, that looks like we might need a new C-clamp. Let me pause and see what happened to that. I guess it was kind of good that that clip popped off, because it caused me to remember that I accidentally flipped something here wrong. This should have been like this. And it also caused me to remember we didn't change that accumulator spring. That was the one part I had left over here. So that's 24202. 987, and we'll put a new one of these in here. At this point, the only thing I regret is not having a new clip. So, take this guy, throw him over there. Now, this is all new. And now we'll put that clip back on. Hopefully that'll be the end of this particular piece, and we can start reassembling everything. It is okay. It's got to get lined up, and then you can push it through. Okay. I don't like how that clip just kind of slid right in there, but it looks okay. All right. And this sub-assembly is ready to put back in for this accumulator piece. So, I guess I put the housing that I cleaned up in there. I'll just reuse this bag. Catch this in the disassembly. All right, so we have only one more piece to get ready, and then we can go back under the truck and start putting this stuff all back together. And that piece would be the pressure valve assembly that we took off at the end there, as well as the little spring. It's going to be the little thimble screen filter. So we'll lay these parts out next. Infamous snap ring, and then we have our little filter. So we're going to replace several of these parts inside of here. This guy should come off, I believe. Yes, he should. There's a piece stuck in here. Let's figure out how to get that off. Alright, let me go over some of these other parts. So we're going to replace this spring, this purple spring, and we're going to replace it with another purple spring. And depending on the year of your vehicle, there's different part numbers here, but for this 99 version, it's this 4L80E, it's an 866 1798 would be the purple spring. So I'll put the old spring in there. I'm going to take my new spring. We're going to be reassembling here. So there's my new spring. The next part is going to be a new valve shaft itself, which is this piece here. And that's going to be a part number 8680547. Things I just like to do is like to make sure that it looks just like my old one, because there have been several different designs. You know, sometimes you order the wrong part number. This looks correct, so this guy goes in here. That guy's my new one. The next part I've got here, if I can find it, okay, so the next part is this piece that sits inside here that's currently stuck right now. This is a 242-02644. As soon as we can get the old one out of here, we'll be able to put the new one in. And the other thing I also have is I have a new one of these guys here. I think, yeah, here it is. And this would be part number 242-02645. So I might just, you know, toss the whole bunch a lot of here, because all we're really going to have is we're going to have this guy. We're going to have this guy. Like that. I'm not sure why the old one is stuck. It should be free to move like this. But it's not. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out why. Now I did have, I cannot find it right now, there it is. Okay, a replacement of this spring. And that would be 8680551. So I'll take this old, it's got like white paint on it. There's the white paint. Sometimes you just want to like make sure these things look relatively the same before you change them out. Alright, so we've got all these pieces now to reassemble everything. I'm going to get another Ziploc bag to put these pieces in. I'm going to clean this filter, and then we're going to, you know, normally I would replace this, but I quite frankly forgot to buy one. So I'm going to just have to make sure that this guy is nice and clean, and we'll put him in. A little dab of trans gel will hold him in place, and then we'll start reassembling everything. Alright guys, come back when we're ready to do that. Guys, let's start putting this back together. I've got my little filter that we've cleaned. There was actually a little shard of aluminum in there, so it did its job. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of trans gel on it to hold it into position here. So that guy's done. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our pressure valve piece back together again, and we'll go fight with that C-clip. So we've got our assembly here ready to go. Get my pieces out. Just give me a second. Alright, I've put some trans gel on these parts to hold them in place a little bit. Alright, so here's our first guy. We're going to put our valve piece in here. This is the guy that didn't want to come out last time. We'll see if he wants to go back in. Just got to go a certain way to get it to fit in the little top piece. get it to fit in that top bore. By the way, make sure you have your safety goggles on because you could have drips and stuff still occurring in here. Almost, there he goes. All right. All right, he's in. Now we got two other pieces that have to go in. Get these out and show you so you can see the order that they go. That was the sound of the snap ring. All right, so kind of bring the camera back here, right? We've got this guy that fits in here, and then there's a washer that fits on here, and then there's a spring that fits on here, and there's our purple spring that fits on there. So we're going to get this whole kit and caboodle in here. So we get the first spring to fit on the valve, and then we get this other guy to fit in the bore. And now, jeez, getting up there all the way. Almost. Still don't have quite enough clearance to put our C-clamp in yet, so there it goes. All right, now I got enough clearance to get the C-clamp in. And what I'm going to do now, let's see if I can do this. Might need to have a helper instead of filming this. I'm going to use the screwdriver to push this up. And I'm going to take the C-clamp, put it around the screwdriver. Try and compress it. You just need 3 hands for this. Almost. All right. You can see up there, I'm just testing this out to make sure that our C-clamp is fully in position. And it is. So that piece is in. Now, it's been dripping pretty bad in a couple of spots. I just didn't want to have it drip on me while I was doing that piece. So I'm going to take these little pieces of shop towel out of the way now. I'm going to keep this one back here because it's dripping pretty bad still. Right, the next guy we're going to do is this reverse servo area. Let me move a little bit out of the way. We're going to do some trans gel along the inside here of the bore. Okay, and then we've got our whole assembly for this. And we got to get a new gasket. And our bolts, so just give me a sec. Gasket. Our bolts. Okay. It's always hard to get these bags open again when you got trans gel all over your gloves. Okay. this guy off one last time, and then I'm going to transgel along the seal all the way around. And even though I know I probably did it before, but transgel along the inner seal. Okay, got him in position. Now we're going to take our new gasket. We're going to use our screwdriver to help tear this so that we don't do a lot of force on this bag. This is a very thin gasket. It's made of metal. You can't reuse it. I want to make sure we don't bend it. Okay. Naturally, it's a double bag, right? That's real helpful, Delco. Thanks a lot. Okay, so again, that was an 867-5728. Looks like they're double bagged now. Oh, maybe not so bad. Looks like maybe it's open on this side. Okay, somebody was thinking. Okay, so we're going to get this guy in position. This guy only goes one way, so when we get him where he's supposed to be, he will line up properly. I have to give this guy a little push in here to compress that new spring, because you're trying to get it flush enough to get this in position. And then the gasket goes with this square piece where the fluid goes along the back side of this, where it's slightly recessed. It goes like that. And then we're going to take our cover, which has a corresponding shape like this, and we're going to get just a couple of these bolts started by hand. All right, and then one more on the other side here. Okay, at this point we're ready to torque this guy down. I'm going to go ahead and put the other bolts in, and then we'll come back. Just coming back to torque this guy up. Just trying to dab up our leaks of fluid that come down so I don't end up taking a bath in it. All right, this guy, this accumulator guy, gets 18 foot-pounds, and if you have a torque wrench that'll go like that, that's small enough to get in here, you can do that. I don't, so I'm using inch-pounds. It's 216 inch-pounds, 18 foot-pounds. So let's just get this guy torqued up. There's really not any specific pattern called out in the service manual. I just like to do an alternating when you're doing these kind of things. All right, I think we're done here. Check them all because I don't want to open this thing up again. Now it's very important that you do this first, because if you don't, you won't be able to torque everything down. If you put the valve body on, it'll obscure your access, I believe, to this one. One of these two, I forget. But anyway, let's just keep going. All right, the next thing is our 2-1 servo. I'm just going to put some trans gel up in here to make it easier. Also, it'll help hold it. It should be pretty stiff with that new seal. I don't want it falling out on me, though. Okay. Take it out of our little baggie. And we'll put some trans gel around the outside here as well. Okay. Position him up inside here. I guess this new seal, just going to have to get it to go into the bore here. it goes. All right. He's just making sure he's not binding or anything. Okay, he's working good, and I feel reasonably comfortable that he's going to stay up there and not fall out. Okay. All right. Now it's time to put the valve body on. You know, just to kind of recap here, right? We've got our new, some of this fluid that's dripping over here by where the filter goes. We've got our new pressure valve assembly we put in. We put on our new, or put on our screen. We've put in this accumulator assembly here for reverse, and we've got our 1-2 servo assembly, and so we're all ready to do the valve body. I'm going to just dab up a little bit more of this leaking stuff here. Just don't want to end up having it on my face. And we're going to bring our valve body into position, and we're going to, you know, tilt it over here to the camera. You can see we've got our ball still held in with the trans gel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a couple of the 10mm valve body mounting bolts, and I'm just going to come underneath here because I'm going to be looking to get the manual valve lined up with the shift position pin, or the shift lever pin. And then I'm going to push this guy up, and I'm just going to manually start putting in the bolts. So I'm going to get that lined up first. And I'm just going to push him into position. Take this guy in the front here, and I'll get him started first. And then I'm just going to go on the opposite corner, all the way over here, and get this guy started. Okay, at that point, it'll stay up here on its own. Sorry about that, bumped the camera. All right, so now I'm just going to come down here and start grabbing some more of these bolts. We're going to skip these two positions because those are the bolts that are going to hold the pawl for the shift detent there. And I'm just going to start feeding these guys in. We're going to skip this position too, because that's the bracket that holds our crossover pipe. We're going to skip this position because that's going to be one of the brackets that holds the wiring harness. And we're going to skip this position because that's the other bracket for the wiring harness. So let me go ahead and feed all these in, and we'll come back. Right, we got most of these in. Still looking to dabble up things that are leaking. I'm going to go ahead and take this rag I stuck back here out because we're putting the crossover pipe back in. All right, next thing we're going to put in is this pawl for the shift lever. A couple more bolts that hold that guy. Keeping stuff in little baggies just really helps speed things up. That one's kind of tight for some reason. Let's see what's going on with that. Whoops, it's real slippery with this transmission fluid and trans gel all over everything. I don't like that. Let me take this guy, back him off. Try to see what's going on there. A little bit more friction than I'm used to. Finish him up in a minute. Let's go ahead and take our electrical stuff out of the baggie. Be some fluid that ran off in there, so be careful as we get this all unpacked. Alright, we got a couple more screws down here that we're going to want to grab, if I can find out what I did with them. Okay, and that'll be for the bracket here and bracket here. The other thing we'll do is we'll grab our new pressure switch, and we'll get the 8mm bolts that secure that. We'll get that in position as well. Hand tighten these guys. Right, so we'll pause this. I'll get these guys hand tightened in, and we'll come back and we'll start torquing stuff down. All right, we got everything hand tightened. We can start putting our electrical connectors back in. This is these are pretty self-explanatory, and they only go one way. So we got the pressure switch one here. There's a double one here for this guy here. Just make sure he snaps on. And there's a single one for this guy here. Okay, got these guys in. And then there's a double one over on this side. And then the force motor. It's got two prongs that get lined up into this connector, and then he's got a little clip. If he's fully seated, he'll snap in. There he goes. Okay. All right, the first thing that you torque down to 97 inch-pounds is going to be the pressure switch. It's a sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is an 8mm for this guy. And of course, naturally, the 8mm socket tried to get away. 2. Just going to double check my picture down here. 3. 4. 5. 6. All right. And now I'm going to go back to my 10 for the rest of these. Now the valve body itself has a sequence as well, and what I'll do is I'll show you guys in the video the picture of it, but I'll get the first few started. First few started on the first row here. Be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is 1 right in the middle. This is 2. This is 3 over here. And this is 4 over here. And like I said, it's rather have you guys just watch me go through this. I'll post up a picture from the service manual so you can see this. And you go through the sequence in the service manual, tightening up everything to 97 inch-pounds. So I'm going to go do that and we'll come back. So here's a view from the service manual. And this is a shot of the sequence for the pressure switch. You can see we've got 1. It's not numbered, but this is 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, and then over here you can see it's 97 inch-pounds. And then if you go through the manual, you can find over here, and again, 97 inch-pounds for the valve body bolts. You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4 is the sequence in the middle, and then 5, 6, up here, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12 would be the bolt that we showed in the video that's holding down the oil pipe. Then 13, 14, 15, then down here for 16, and then after 16, 17 is up here in the corner, then 18, 19, and then for some reason another little typo in the manual, it just jumps to 21. It should say 20 and 21. So I hope that helps you out. So when you get number 12 done, it's time to put the oil crossover or the fluid crossover pipe back in. There's a small hole that it came out of right through here. You can line it up, and then it goes up here is the other hole, and just push it in so that's fully seated. And then the number 13 bolt is attached to this bracket, or it's used to secure this bracket rather. It's almost in, hand tightened. And so the reason this is like this is with this pipe here, you can't get to this bolt, so they have you torque that up first before you install this. All right, we'll just do this guy again, 97 inch-pounds on all of these 10mm bolts, and then we'll just keep going on. I'll continue torquing these and we'll come back. All right, we got these guys all torqued up. It wasn't that long ago that I changed the bushing for the filter. Whenever you buy one of these new GM filters, they come with a new bushing, but I'm not going to change it out again because I had just done this recently, maybe 6 months ago. So we're going to press our filter into the bushing. That's our last piece, really. At this point, I can't remember. Well, let me just say, I don't know if I gave you guys the number for the kit, but the number for this kit with the filter and the bushing from GM is 242-10956. At this point, we're ready to put our pan back on. Now, before I did this, off camera, I had taken a clean rag and I'd gone around the gasket seal area just to make sure I didn't have any dirt or anything. And of course, before this, we had gotten a gasket scraper and gotten it all clean and prepared. So we've got our pans all cleaned out in here. We've cleaned off the magnet, got our gasket all clean, and now we're going to be ready to put this guy in. So kind of come up at an angle like this. Back first. Yeah. Just a little bit hard to do this upside down. Just got to get it to clear this bracket that's holding this guy. That's usually what's in the way. All right, and then I'm going to try to get a couple of bolts in at each corner. Make sure that we have our gasket centered. Reach up here, move it around if you need to. Alright. I'm just going to screw this in by hand as far in as I can get it so it can help me hold this. Alright, and then the transmission mount, I'll usually hold it for you on the back. I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to keep going around, putting these 10mm pan bolts back in, finger tight, and then we'll come back and torque them. Okay, I've gotten these guys all in hand tight, and now I'm going to come around and torque them. They get the same torque value as that reverse accumulator, which is 18 foot-pounds, or in the case, what I'm doing here with this smaller smaller torque wrench, I'm using 216 inch-pounds. And what I like to do is just go onto opposing corners, and then I'll catch all the ones in the middle. A couple of tips here for these ones in the back. These are the hardest ones, not this one here, but these ones are the hardest in the back. When you get ready to do this guy here, most all these trucks, this one has a skid plate, but this piece here has a hole built into it so that you can put your wrench up here and torque this guy down. And then very similarly, there's a hole on this side. You can torque this guy down. This guess I didn't have that one in as far as I thought. And the other ones that are kind of hard are these ones in the very back. You might be able to push up against the rear mount and get them, but if not, you might have to get a swivel in here. The key is to get them turned in by hand until they're all the way in so that you can get in there. All right, so I'm going to finish torquing these up, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go add Dextron 6 fluid. We're going to put 4 quarts in, and then we're going to just go through a warm-up sequence, and we'll make sure all the gears get shifted through. So we'll come back after that. Came out here to try this out. I got the vehicle out of the garage. It's snowing right now, so I won't be able to do as much as what I wanted. It's kind of snow and rain. You can see up here on the dash here, it just started. But basically, I've got it started up. I've let it sit in park for about 20 minutes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk it through the gears. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get all the air that's trapped in the various passages of the valve body and the other parts that we change, and just work things around. So ideally what I'd do is I'd sit it for about 5-10 minutes in each of these gears. I'd sit it in neutral for a little while. I'd sit it in overdrive for a little while. And again, there's like maybe 5 minutes or so. Third gear. And the other thing I'm doing is as I go through these gears, I'm trying to feel, do I feel things shifting into place? Second gear, and then lastly, first gear. And after I've worked through all of those, I'd work my way back up just for a couple of minutes each. And then when I get all the way back up to park, then what I'd go do then is I'd start just actually making sure, am I able to move, right? So we're able to go in reverse right now, and we're able to go and drive right now. We're not hearing any strange sounds or anything like that. And so what I would do next over here is I've got my Tech 2, and you could use a Tech 2, you could use an MDI, or this is just an optional step. And I would go and run my transmission data, and then I would have somebody drive the vehicle as a helper, and I would be going down watching to see, mostly to see that my shifts are happening when I expect them to, and I'm not getting any shorts anywhere, right? So following the shop manual procedure for trying this all out. But I think we're going to be good here, and this service engine soon light came on when we originally started the repair with the original codes. And I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to clear it, because what I want to have happen is I want to see it clear itself naturally, which it will do after so many codes. And if we check our Tech 2 now and take a look at the DTCs, diagnostic trouble codes, we can see that the ones that we had, right? So previously we had this 730. There's a whole series of codes because of this problem. Haven't ran it yet though, but I'm expecting that to be fine. Our second to third shift solenoid valve, that was the last time that we drove the vehicle. That failed. I'm expecting that to be fixed. Right now we can already see this U1192 that we got as the electronics were failing in the transmission. That has already passed, so that's going to be cleared. And this P1626, which was also related to electronics problem, it's already passed. It'll be cleared. This P1643 control circuit problem, it's already passed. This 1654, it's already passed. 1870 hasn't run yet because I got to get it out on the road, but that's the main one I'm after with this repair that we did. And it's just going to keep cycling through these. So you can see, again, you don't have a Tech 2 here, right? You can just hook up any kind of ODB2 reader and pull these codes. But I like to leave them in here, not clear them, and let the onboard powertrain control module clear them as they're passed. Once they're all like this, where it's passed on this test and the last test, after so many of these, it clears it anyway. And so one day you're driving down the road, maybe in a day or two, it'll clear up, and then you know it's a good repair. Whereas if you clear it out, you can't be really sure. All right, I hope this long-ass video helps you out. There's something in here for everybody. If you're just doing the valve body, or if you're just doing any of these individual pieces, there's something in here for you. But I hope this helps you out. I'm not a transmission guy, but if you leave comments, I'll try to answer any questions I can. And if you found this useful, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.